Hey everyone, this is Oniika, and today we have something special. This is going to be a look into the Fearless Knight Sprite creation process. Now, I'm sure a lot of you seeing this have seen me stream working on these sprites for Fearless Knight, but I've kind of cultivated a few new tips and tricks that I'm very excited about, and I think people will be interested in seeing, as they are big time savers. And you could look at this video as a sort of cheat sheet, maybe. Now, people who have seen me work or have played Fearless Knight know that a lot of the animations start as rough blobs, similar to this. This is kind of ugly, but it gives you a good basis for what the animation needs to be and what it will look like in-game. This has been scaled up to 400% the size it actually is in the final game, and that's going to be the size we'll be working at. Now, you might be wondering, why are we starting so large when we're just creating pixel art? It seems a little strange, but if you're used to working on digital art, you will know that the larger you work, if you get to scale it down, it sort of hides any imperfections or wiggly lines or things like that. And the same process is going to apply here. Now, once we have our frame on the PSD, our rough frame, we're going to start redrawing it. We're going to start drawing over it. And I'd recommend lowering the opacity, creating a new layer. And this is, again, going to be 4 times the size of the final sprite. So you might think we'd want to use a 4 pixel brush, but no, I would recommend using a 3 pixel brush. We're going to pick this brush right here. Why are we going to pick this brush? Because if you go to your shape dynamics, you can see that there is no size jitter. There is no line width variance, and that is going to be very handy because if you are making an animation, you want the lines to essentially be the same thickness throughout every frame. Line width variation is really good for still images or still frames, but trying to create multiple frames with line width variance, even though it'll look cool in a screenshot, does not look very cool in motion. So we're going to make sure we take every step we can to get the lines nice, crisp, and consistent. So we're going to scale our brush down to 3 pixels, which, if you don't know, you can use the bracket keys to change your brush size. If you look up here, see how it says 6, 1, 2, 3, 3 pixels. So we're going to zoom in, and we're just going to start drawing. Now, if you've ever seen a cooking show where they get the nice roast chicken all it's still raw, but they got it all dressed up. They put it in the oven, and then they pull a completely fresh one out of the oven. Well, we're gonna do something like that, just because even though it only takes, I would estimate, about maybe 20-30 minutes to get from this to this, I don't want to make this video an hour long. So again, I've taken the liberty of actually drawing the frame ahead of time. So this is our nice drawn Poco, which will be the basis for our pixel art. The next step, once we get the line drawing done, is to make a new layer, take the opacity down to 50, set it to multiply, and we're going to set our colors to black and white and start drawing in the shadows. Now, I would recommend, when doing this, to have either a prior frame for reference or keeping your blobs, which I draw the shadows onto the blobs because I find that, you can see I've changed the drawing a little bit. I've changed the pose very slightly. I find that when animating, the shadows are very, very important. The shadow placement is very important to creating a consistent, clean, and smooth animation. I accidentally activated my phone. Cancel! Cancel! Can you believe this? Technology. You know what? You know what? I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving that in. That was Siri. Cancel. Technology. Oh my gosh. Where was I? Yes, drawing in the shadows. I'm leaving that in. You can deal with that. So we're going to draw in the shadows. That didn't happen last time. I did a recording that I ended up messing up. And I used the exact same words, and it didn't activate that, but this time it did. So here we go. Anyway, we're going to be using either white or the eraser to sort of sharpen up these shadows, make sure they look nice. I'm still gotta regain my composure. And again, using our prior frame when necessary, or using our blobs when necessary to check where the shadows should be placed. And I like to do this kind of fast, kind of get, you know, nice dynamic shadows going in. I don't like to spend too much time because you want animations to be nice and clean and simplistic. You don't want the drawings to be too illustrative, too many details, because everything gets kind of muddled when you do that. So just continue like so until you end up with something a little bit like this. And this is essentially a finished drawn frame. So how are we going to get from this to pixel art? Because this is a, you know, nice clean animation, rather nice clean frame that is suited to animation. But how are we going to turn this into pixel art? Well, we're going to do a little magic, a little bit of big cheats. We're going to duplicate these layers, just in case we mess anything up. I find that duplicating layers is very important. And I'm still stuck on my phone activating there. That was so weird. Anyway, we're going to create a new layer with a white fill and merge our lines copy down to that. And we're going to make another white fill layer. We're going to take our shadow copy, bump it back up to 100%, and merge it down to that white fill layer. And you notice we might have some gaps here and there because of our outlines, and you can just go and fill them in, or you can kind of cut down on the gaps by duplicating the layer, setting it to multiply, and merging it down. But once we have these two layers and we're satisfied with them and they have the white fill background, we're going to grab them both and scale them down using bicubic automatic to 50%. And now we are at 200% the size of the final sprite. And what are we going to do from here? Well, we're going to take these nice crisp drawn lines and turn them into pixelated lines by going over to this very inconspicuous menu called Image and picking Threshold. And you can see, hey, look at that. We got nice pixelated black and white lines. And you can move this up to make the lines thicker, move it down to make them thinner. I recommend keeping it around sort of the 130-ish mark. Which I believe it starts at maybe 128, but what you're looking for here is for everything to be either 1 or 2 pixels in width, no more than 2 pixels. For the most part. There's a few places here like that becomes 3 pixels, but that's fine. As long as mostly everything is 1 to 2 pixels, will be a-okay. So I'm going to hit OK on that. Then we're going to go over to our shadow layer, do the same thing. Image, adjustments, it's all the way at the top. Threshold. Take a look. And yeah, I think around the default is going to be what's best for us. Hit OK. Now we're going to do something that is going to be very handy and save a lot of time again, especially if you are familiar with my old process, you're going to get a little mind blown here because it's going to save us a ton of time. We're going to duplicate our shadow layer once, twice, 3 times. Whoops. Duplicate, not delete. 3 times. So now we have 4 shadow layers, and we're going to make sure they're all set to multiply. We're going to take the first copy we made, nudge that up 1 pixel, make the second copy we made, nudge it to the right 1 pixel, and the third copy we made, nudge it to the left 1 pixel, and that's done by selecting the layer and using the arrow keys on your keyboard. You want to make sure you do this with the arrow keys because you only want them moved 1 pixel, no more, and no less would be impossible, so that's a saying that doesn't apply here. Anyway, we're going to take these, make sure they're all at 100%, set to multiply, and merge them. Then we're going to take this new shadow layer, set that to multiply, and bring that down to 50%, and merge that to our other shadow layer. We now have a sort of complete shadow layer, which we are once again going to set to multiply and bring down to 50%. And now, what did duplicating those layers and nudging them around do? Well, if we bring this back up to 100, you can see it created this nice in-between, this little, you might call it anti-aliasing, you might call it an in-between, but we're going to use the name color 2 for this. So it creates this color 2, which will be very handy for us. So now we're going to take this down to 50%, and you can see that's pretty close. That's getting there. That is something reasonably resembling pixel art. However, there are a few places you can see, particularly in here, where there are color 2s bleeding out from the outline. It's very easy to take care of. We're just going to go down to our lines layer, take our magic wand tool, make sure anti-aliasing is turned off, and select all of the outside areas, anything that's not going to be part of the drawing itself. Go back up to our shadow layer and hit delete. And actually, what we can do on our lines layer, now that we have that outside stuff taken care of, we can actually delete that as well. So we have a, if I turn off the background, you can see it is transparent around the sprite. Or, well, I guess around the drawing. But it's transparent, that's what matters. Now, how are we going to go from this to a colored sprite? Well, I have a color reference set aside, and again, with pixel art, changing colors is very easy. However, making sure your sprite is properly palletized is also very important. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm just going to treat this as an individual basis and just go into just putting some colors down on this. And this is where a lot of time is going to get saved. So we're going to get our fill bucket, make sure it's set to tolerance 2 should work, anti-aliasing is turned off, and as we move into this next step, I'm going to submit a question to you. Do you like coloring books? Do you like those digital coloring books they used to have online back in the day? Because it's pretty much what we're going to do. Now, you can see I somehow messed up. I don't know what I just did there. I had no, what did I do? Yes. I had contiguous unchecked. You want that checked, because what that's going to do is make it that it only affects the area you're coloring in. Contiguous is essentially it fills everything of that color. That's not what we want yet. We will want that soon enough, but for now keep that checked so we can just deal with this on a area by area basis. How are you liking this video so far? That's a thing to ponder as we're doing some fill colors. I had a better one earlier, but I made a mistake. I didn't capture the whole screen. My phone didn't go off. I didn't make that weird error using contiguous there. It was a good video. You'll never see it though. Never. Now is a nice time to ponder things like that because this is sort of relaxed, you know, laid back part of the process where we're just going to fill in these colors. And again, you would want some sort of reference or palette laid out for this. Just make sure you know what you're going to be actually dealing with and what you're actually going to be doing. I can make a video more about color selections and things like that at some point, but that's not what this video is. This is just a nice little quick look at things like this. Quick look at going from line art to pixel art, and a quick look at saving some time. And we're just going to keep going in, keep filling in every little area. And you can see this doesn't take much time at all, and very importantly, it gives us values for color 1, which is the lightest color, color 2, which is the in-between, and color 3, which is the shadow color. And this is going to be sort of a basis for the 4-color method that you see a lot of pixel art using. It's a very common thing to do. It's used in a lot of Capcom games, used in a lot of Arxis games. Usually looks pretty nice, and it gives you a very cel-shaded, cartoony or anime feeling, which I like. I like when my video games look kind of like cartoons. It's kind of fun, you know? Everyone likes cartoons. Some people don't. Remember that? Remember being a kid and someone was like, oh, you're in middle school, and someone's like, oh, cartoons are for kids, and you're like, hey, Ralph, we're 12. Oops, made a little error there. I remember that. That was a strange error. Anyway, you can see this doesn't take much time at all. We're almost done. In the better video, you know, I kind of streamlined this process and didn't do all of it, but I'm kind of rambling now, so this is the one you're going to have to deal with. It's fine, though, because, you know, actually leaving this all in kind of shows how this sprite process does go very quickly, and it leaves you with time to question the universe, time to ponder the possibilities, and time to really just explore yourself and your mind, and if you are like me and like to stream, interact with your chat. And it also leaves you with no time at all, because look at that, we're done. See, so that only took a few minutes, and we have something that went from a drawing to something reasonably resembling pixel art. But we're not quite done yet. What we're going to do is merge our shadow layer and our lines layer, and then we are going to start coloring the outline. Now, you don't necessarily have to color the outline, but I find it looks a lot better, looks a lot cleaner, and that is the style that Fearless Knight uses, so that's what I'll be demonstrating. Now, here's where you want to uncheck contiguous, because here's a little tip. If you're going to color your outlines, use a nice wacky color that doesn't show up anywhere else in the sprite, and making sure contiguous is unchecked. You're going to just fill in somewhere in the outline, and you get this really weird funky neon look. Now this is actually going to help us because this is going to show us our progress in coloring the outline. There's no way you're going to mistake this weird green color for anything else. So we're going to select our outline and do select similar, and we're going to start coloring it. How does this work? On the outlines that are touching color 1 in any color area, we're going to grab color 2, we're going to go to our pencil tool and use a round 6 pixel brush. That's what I tend to use. You can use whatever size you're most comfortable with. And you're just going to start going along these edges where color 1 is touching the outline, and just go over that line with color 2, and you can see where this weird green color is actually helping us out quite a bit because it's giving us a nice show of our progress. It's letting us know how much we have to do, how much is left. It's very friendly like that. And that's what you want. You want a nice, friendly, easygoing process. Now, what do we do about the lines touching color 3? Well, we're going to create color 4. Again, you would usually have this set up, but since we're going to just treat this as an individual basis, we're going to create a color 4. And we're going to just go over these lines the same way we did using color 2. And you can see we're getting there. We're getting pretty close. Now, let's say you get kind of bored with this, right? Let's say you want to move on to another color. And you go, well, there's some color 3 touching this outline, so I'm going to make our little color 4. And start going outside here. And then you go, oh wow, look at that. I'm like done. You know, I don't need to mess with that color anymore. Let me go back and work with her coat. And let me just make a new color for it. No, don't. Don't make a new one. Use the eyedrop tool. Make sure it's set to point sample. Grab your old one. You want the outlines to always be the exact same color. And again, if you know anything about palletizing things or pixel art in general, it's going to kind of be a no-brainer, and you're going to know how to deal with that yourself. But for people who are complete beginners, just figured I'd point that out. You want to make sure there's only the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 colors for each color area. Now, for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to go along the outside. But there's a few places where you might get intersecting lines, such as here on Pocos' legs. Now, how do we deal with this? The way we deal with this is you sort of think, okay, well, what's on top? What has priority? What's on the outside? Here we have the boot is outside of the sock and the sock is outside of the leg. So this line, which is touching both boot and sock, is going to get the boot's outline because it's on the outside. The sock here, this line is going to get the sock's outline because it is outside of the leg, and the leg is our innermost or bottom layer, so obviously it's going to retain its own outline color. And the same applies for, say, here with the skirt. The skirt is outside of the leg here, so we're going to make sure that the skirt is what's getting the outline color. And again, it should be self-explanatory, but I've seen people mess this up, and it really just comes from, you know, you're really kind of not thinking about it. It just becomes an automated process. So you might make the wrong choice unknowingly, but thinking about what is on top is definitely going to help. Same here with this this line with the coat that intersects with the skirt. The coat is obviously on top of the skirt, so it gets the outline color. And you're just going to keep going like that, continue along, until eventually you end up with misaligned layers again. Come on now. Ruins the magic. You're going to end up with this, which is the fully colorized drawing, the pixelated, fully colorized drawing. And you can see each color layer. We get the nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 everywhere. Gets 4 colors. I actually only used 3 colors on the skull ornaments for Poco, but that's just a personal choice. Most areas are going to get the 4 colors, and you can see that throughout. So what do we do from here? Because this is pretty close to pixel art, but it's a little messy, and it's still double the resolution that we actually want to have in the game. This is where we're going to scale this down. Once again, going to our interpolation and making sure it's set at nearest neighbor. Now, why do you want it at nearest neighbor? That's going to preserve the 4 colors. It's going to preserve the pixel art. And even though it's going to be a little more pixelated, that is what you actually want. So we're going to take this and scale it down to 50%, which I actually have here, our scaled down version. You can see this is pretty clean pixel art. This looks relatively nice. And we've gotten to this. My computer keeps blooping at me. We've gotten to this point by, I don't know why it's doing that. Can you stop, please? Thank you. We've gotten to this point by doing no actual pixel work whatsoever. And this is why this technique is very cool. Saves me a lot of time, because drawing pixel by pixel, sometimes you'll zoom in, overwork it. Sometimes it's just a little hard to see what you're doing, and it can get a little confusing. And this cuts down on that. This allows us to get to this point in, how long's it been? Maybe 20 minutes. And I've been going and, you know, describing things. And we have cut out a little time here and there. But in any case, you can go from your line art to this in under a half an hour. And that's very, very impressive, because drawing this pixel by pixel would take a lot longer than that. Now, if you're doing just an in-between frame, or cleanliness isn't really an issue, you could drop this right into a game, and to most people, it would look fine. I like to do a little manual cleanup work, however, and this is going to be the first and the last time, actually, that we're going to even touch any of the pixels. Now, there's a little bit of logic, so to speak, that goes into this. There's a little bit of expertise. You kind of need to know when and where to clean certain things, but a rule of thumb is that you're essentially doing connect the dots. So if we look at our colored layer for comparison, this is before we scaled it down. You can see along the leg here and along Fernandez's teeth, they're nice connected lines, but when we scaled it down, they became disconnected. What you would do is go in with a 1 pixel pencil brush and just sort of connect those manually, and along the outsides you see there's some disconnected pixels, and just kind of draw over those. And really you should only spend about, I'll say, 20 to 30 minutes tops, because you don't want to overwork your sprite, you don't want to panic about it. And again, it's going to move fast enough in-game that most people aren't even going to really notice. But once you're done, you know, drawing any extra details, you might need like the little eyes on Pocos buttons or the white and red stripes on her sleeves, you end up with something like this. And that is our completed pixel art. And if you add the 20 minutes to the, how long has it been? It's been 29 minutes. So in still under an hour, you can go from a drawing to completed pixel art very, very easily, which is, it's a huge time saver because any sprite, particularly high-resolution sprites, can take a little bit of time to do. I actually find high-resolution sprites are easier to work with than lower ones because, again, the idea that the larger you're working, the more room for error there is. You don't have to be so worried about little details here and there. But, again, there you go. That is the process I use. Now, if we compare our cleaned sprite to the unclean sprite, you can see not a whole lot changed. Again, you're mostly playing connect the dots, things like that with Fernandez's teeth. If you look along the inside of this leg, you can see I sort of connected the pixels, and again, just drew on extra little details like the stripes. But most of the inside lines, most of that color 2 anti-aliasing stuff, that can be very frustrating. But I actually didn't need to clean almost any of it at all. Oh, there's our prior frame. I accidentally turned that on. And yeah, it looks really good. This is going to go in the game and it's going to look really nice. But that's about it. That's all there is to it. It's a very straightforward process, very straightforward technique, and again goes very quickly. It goes a little quicker if you're not actually doing commentary for the third, fourth time with several things going wrong in the middle of the video. But, I mean, it wouldn't be an Oniika video without everything going wrong. So, yeah, there we have it. This has been Oniika, and this has been a look at the Fearless Knight sprite drawing process. And if you liked this video, if you enjoyed what you saw, if you want to practice these techniques yourself, or if you have anything that you think might help me out, or even if you try it out and you have a sprite and you want to show it to me, feel free to. I'd be very interested in seeing how this technique aids other people, and if they can improve on it, because I'm all about sharing knowledge, you know, sharing the knowledge of art, making it not an endless pit of suffering. You knew I had to get one of those in there. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for watching. And again, if you have any results you want to show me, or any questions, or any more Fearless Knight animation process specifically that you would like to see, yeah, just let me know. I will absolutely at some point make an in-depth look at the cleaning process, because that's kind of interesting. It's there's a lot to talk about there for something that actually doesn't take that much time, and something that I feel is pretty important in making your pixel art have a lot of polish to it. But anyway, that'll be it. That's the end of the video. And I don't have any fun quips, any nuggets of knowledge to leave you with, aside from the most important lesson we've learned today, which is if you're going to record a video, make sure that the screen area is actually capturing everything. You know, if you want to show off Photoshop, because you need these layers here, you need people to see, okay, here's prior frame, you know, what's he doing over here. That's important. And the other thing that's really important is making sure your phone is turned off so it doesn't activate and ruin the video. But we're going to leave that in for comedy hijinks' sake. Again, thank you all for watching. Goodbye.